Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome! The Persistent Universe monthly report for both November and December has arrived, and it is quite a big one, so settle in and let's see what it says. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Thank you guys so much for the support, it is truly appreciated. And if you do enjoy my content, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. So kicking off with AI content, they created feature test maps for AI behaviors and usables. These test maps are new automated testing processes that run each day and print out reports, which then enables the team to identify bugs significantly quicker than before, with the team saying a significant challenge we always had on the team was understanding when an issue was specific to a certain feature or if an external change from another team caused a problem. Patterns identified by the feature tests will solve this problem, and currently the team are testing approximately 50 usables and 20 AI behaviors that can be interacted with by the player, with the team soon moving on to more advanced feature tests for the more complicated behaviors such as the bartender, engineer and security guards. So great hearing that all of these tools CIG are creating are helping to identify and find bugs, all automated, which makes it much less likely to get missed, and getting these kinds of tools created will certainly help in the long run when they are hunting for the last remaining bugs. The team also continued to improve the bartender and patrons for Alpha 3.16 and added more drinks options. The busy work animation was also devised to increase variety when the bartender isn't serving patrons, and there are now 10 different animations that include stretching, glass cleaning and shelf organizing, with idle facial expressions also added to the patrons and bartenders. Nice to get more of this variations to their animations, as often in certain games the characters can look very gamey because they're just using one or two, maybe three different animations each time, so the more the merrier, gives it a bit more of a realistic impression. Finally, the AI content team began implementing animation assets for the vending and arcade machines and started closing out the coffee shop usable. Finally getting coffee in game, role-playing level raising, but also hearing that the vending and arcade machines are getting a bit of love. Bearing in mind this is the AI team, so it's going to be more for the AI to use, but hopefully one day soon players will be able to use vending machines, play games like Vanguard, Hyperforce in the game and so forth, and hopefully that is one day soon. Next we have the AI features team, who worked on feature test levels, setting up tests to repeat with different starting conditions, such as equipping AI with different weapons. Alongside this, they have been identifying and fixing bugs before they become an issue, and as the team become more familiar with this tech, they will begin to cover existing functionality to maintain quality across the board. Now for the AI tech team, they finished their work on the initial version of the planetary navigation, which contains all the base elements required for it to be used in-game. Now once implemented, navigation mesh will be created on a planetary surface around the actors and NPCs who are able to use it, basically to follow paths and move along them. Improvements were also added for both the generation process and the Pathfinder to work with the new tech as well. Now this is amazing to hear. I'm hoping implementation won't take too long and we can shortly, early this year, begin to see NPCs planetside moving around and outside of wrecks or just making their way across a planet or a moon surface. It will also be necessary for allowing creatures to do the same, creatures like the Boreal Stalker for example, and I'm expecting it is going to be sometime this year that we see NPCs planetside in Stanton, and hopefully, as I say, it is the first half of this year. The AI tech team also continued to refactor the AI weapon controller used by ship AI. This time they are focused on improving missile turrets and accuracy. New collision avoidance tech, which is the AI navigation obstacle stuff, was also added for use in narrow areas and spaces with complex concave objects. They also went back to the trolley push and pull feature to help the designers begin using it. This involved adjusting the path follower and creating a feature test map. The team also continued to refine the path follower tech, specifically the social AI element, improving functionality by setting usables linked to a path. NPCs will be able to follow the path and stop to use the linked usable, and alongside this, they also investigated and fixed several issues with NPC aiming, looking and locomotion, most of which involved synchronization issues between the server and the client. So I really hope that they will be able to fix up much of the issues with the AI not responding as intended without having to wait on server meshing. Hopefully that's what it's saying here, and going forwards they can roll this into the PU and NPCs will actually respond more as they're intended to. Finally, progress was made on the subsumption editor tool, with the team now having all the base elements in place so the designers and programmers can start using it to create missions and NPC behaviors. Subsumption being the system that drives the AI. Okay, moving on to animation. The team worked on the K-Hix missile launcher, weapon select and deselect, improved player crouch motion, idle animations and drunk locomotion, and further developed mining gadgets. Very happy to hear that the crouch motion is getting improved. I really hope they make it kind of like Tarkov, like what we have with the stood upright movement, using the scroll wheel to change the speed. I think it's quite imperative to get crouching to this level, as stealth is going to be vital, and being able to make your footsteps as silent as possible could make a big difference. For AI animation, the team worked on Carroring, Surrender, Mess Hall, and Patron animation sets. Tasks were also completed for vendor and bartenders, the multi-tool work zone set, security blocking and directing of players, vent searching, vandalizing objects, and medical behavior. They also blocked out NPCs reacting to dead bodies. Some nice new animation sets getting attention now, quite bespoke sets as well, which will look great, I'm sure. On the facial animation side, the team progressed with general security lines, animations for idle workers, vendors, and medical behaviors. The motion capture team continued to solve data for transversals and ill or injured AI. Okay, on to the character art team. They wrapped up the visual update to the DNA head archetypes, which we should see these improvements to the heads and eyes in Alpha 3.17. Nothing about hair here though. Focus was also on the frontier style clothing for Pyro, while others worked on a series of generic Stanton outfits from the backlog that will begin to appear in-game shortly. Finally, the team worked with graphics on the second version of the layer blend shader to improve wear and dirt tech. Now, on to the ship art team. In the UK, the team progressed well with the MISC Hull A, bringing most of its interior to the final art. The landing gear, the extended cargo mechanism, and the level of details were completed and are now ready to hand over to tech art. The Hull C moved through the pipeline as well and is currently approaching its grey box review. Work included converting materials to hard surface shaders, adding control panels throughout the ship, and refining the pilot seat for optimal visibility. Throughout November, the RSI Scorpius moved through the white box phase before grey box work commenced in December. Most of the exterior was completed by the end of the year, including the wings, thrusters, landing gear, and canopy, so it does sound like it's going to be on time for Alpha 3.17 in March. Now it says an all-new vehicle progressed through white box, while the Banu Merchantman progressed towards grey box. Not sure what this new vehicle is. Could it be maybe a refinery ship? I don't know. Do let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, very exciting to hear the Banu Merchantman is getting into grey box. It's probably going to spend a bit of time in grey box because it's quite a big ship and has a lot of rooms and areas that are relatively bespoke, as Banu stuff has not really been fleshed out that far, but it is making progress. In the US, the Drake Vulture's interior reached final art with just a lighting pass remaining. The exterior colours and wear was worked on, as well as level of details for the landing gear, while the internal damage pass began. This ship is looking like it'll be easily ready for 3.18. It is coming along so fast, which I suppose means the team developing ship-based Salvage should have plenty of time to test it out with the actual ship itself, so hopefully Salvage remains where it is. Finally, for ship art, the Drake Corsair moved into grey box and art was finalised. So exciting to hear that the Drake Corsair is coming around, and I cannot wait to see this ship, as it will probably show us how the Caterpillar can be with the latest up-to-date Drake styles. Now moving on to the audio team, a lot of work was on IAE, ships that we now have, and Area 18's hospital, but the audio code team continued to work towards the first releases of Claudius. Claudius being the new audio tool which will improve the current audio system, allowing for more consistency with the audio, finding and amending audio bugs much quicker. We've only heard about Claudius at CitizenCon, so I am looking forward to hearing it in action and also seeing many of the audio bugs and inconsistencies that we have right now getting cleaned up. Okay, so on to the engine team. A lot of this is way over my head, but I will read it out anyway, just so that those who do understand what it all means can get the information. If you do have any explanations for what this means, do drop them in the comments below. It is much appreciated. Now, for the last 2 months of 2021, the physics team worked on a variety of topics. Quantum grids were changed to use one per solar system. Grid overlap checks were unified for planets and other entities, and grid transitions were improved to allow a natural transition into grids that aren't a direct parent-child of the current grid to transition from. Moreover, it says physics constraints received support for limiting the gravity tilt angle, and work began to support structural joints on CGAs. Not sure what that is. Also, a quantum step function for spaceships was implemented, and finally, it says entities tied to a rope are no longer unnecessarily woken up when the rope becomes slack. What on earth they are talking about there, I have no idea. For optimizations, physics post-step notifications and networked rigid are now processed in parallel. Similarly, vehicle hit processing was moved to allow parallelization. Not sure what that means either. I do wonder if this is referring to physical damage and how it registers hits on ships. Not sure. Cross-grid collision detection was optimized to avoid expensive geometry checks as much as possible. And asteroid fields now use the faster hash function and cache physics proxies of their occupants to prevent redundancy component lookups. Finally, physics events are now more efficiently deleted after being processed. Again, let me know in the comments if you know or have any idea what this is on about. So moving on to the renderer, further work was done on the transition to Gen 12. Excellent to hear that. Progress included improvements to instance buffers after they had previously been optimized in October. Shadow support for lightweight render nodes was added. Lightweight render node decals were also ported to Gen 12 and projected decals were fixed, as well as shader stage visibility was improved to compile and bind fewer stages. Render passes are now always submitted via render graph and support a fallback pass in case any required PSO isn't compiled. Not sure what that means. Fog volumes and skybox rendering was ported, clip volume rendering migrated, render proxy shadow enabled, and color grading refactored for Gen 12. For atmosphere and cloud rendering, R&D or research and development was on the reprojection of frame data without the need for motion vectors. That was compiled but did not yield satisfactory results, so the implementation will stick with the current reprojection scheme for the time being. To improve the image quality nonetheless, research started on noise reduction of the original Raymarch results that are fed into the filter chain to produce final full resolution images. I really can't imagine how incredible the skies and the clouds and atmosphere will look once CIG are done. They already look amazing now, and they are nowhere near completed, so exciting things are coming. Irradiance computation for atmospheric lighting was improved. It now better integrates ground albedo and reflected sunlight. And finally, code was unified in various areas in preparation for integration upstream into the main dev branch as preparation for the coming transition of all atmosphere and cloud render code to Gen 12. Now I believe this could be the point of milestone 1, which is to have everything converted to using Gen 12. Hopefully with atmosphere and clouds transitioned, that will mean a performance improvement. Anyway, onto the core engine. The team submitted their first draft of entity-centric component update scheduling, which they say is already showing promising performance results. So very happy to hear this. The scheduler now also catches and reports invalid dependencies and provides options for various update processing scenarios. This area culling received additional improvements and now better handles invalid shapes. The localization manager's loading code was optimized and the engine now collects GPU timings as part of its profiler telemetry data that can be consumed for analysis by the external profiling tool. And finally, the team also looked into compiling time optimizations, plus compile times were reanalyzed via Clang, and code file was redistributed to Uber files accordingly. So massive amounts of work going on with the engine teams, lots of physics work going on, lots about Gen 12 and the atmosphere, but a lot of it is, as I say, straight over my head. I kind of understand a little bit about what they're saying or what it's referring to, just don't understand what it means for us. Now, for the character and weapon art team, in late November they moved on to the salvaging mechanic, with the initial focus on the technical aspects of visually removing materials from an object and ensuring that its state can be reliably stored and recreated, both across the network and when the object streams back in. This is currently being prototyped using the damage map system. It is very exciting to hear that work has actually kicked off for salvaging, and this will give us the ability to basically strip a single material from the hull of a ship, be that, I suppose, a derelict or any ship, storing that in a canister to maybe sell on. And for the initial release of Salvage, which I am now feeling more confident will make it in 3.18 as they have actually begun work, it'll just be a single material. Throughout the year, work on the hacking minigame continued. It has gone through many iterations, with each prototype being playtested internally using a simplified 2D in-engine representation. It has since evolved to be more competitive, tying into some of the in-world game mechanics like scanning, which sounds pretty interesting. Now, as the core layout of the minigame has remained fairly stable throughout the multiple prototypes, work began on bringing the visuals online, and they say even the concepts saw multiple iterations, with it currently looking like something that the player is executing scripts to programmatically attack the target system. The interface as it currently stands will offer the user different options to input the various commands. Now, the more that I hear about hacking, the more excited I am for it. To me, it seems like something that most of us can do to get simple access to certain things, but longer term, when these systems get more challenging, I reckon I'll have someone to call upon who is in the org and is much better at this kind of thing than I am. Now, on to gameplay features. Significant progress was made on item selling, which is excellent to hear, with the kiosk UI approaching completion and backend code trending towards completion in Q1. Very excited to read this. Selling is making headway, and this should be coming in 3.17, so for the Q1 patch. And this will allow us to sell personal items back to shop, so weapons, armors, maybe clothing, but things like attachments, ammunition, magazines, but not ships or components for the first iteration. I believe it'll be later on will the ability to sell components and ships back. The cargo refactor is still ongoing but intermittent as supporting work from other teams come online. Now, the team are using the time between these jumps to work on small quality of life fixes where possible. My fingers are crossed that the cargo refactor still makes it in for 3.18. It sounds like it could potentially slip, as they cannot consistently work on it and they're waiting for other teams to have time to free up with other priorities, but we will see as the weeks pass. Now, for the vehicle features team, towards the end of the year, some team members looked to the future, with technical reworks being planned and started for the transit networks and restricted areas. And while these won't result in significant changes to the player's experience, they will result in far fewer bugs and much better stability, which is definitely a thumbs up from me. Now, these sorts of reworks, they say, are necessary because longer term, they free up the team to focus on either new features or improve other aspects of the game. The last major focus from the vehicle feature team was on jump points, which are progressing well, they say. The team are currently working on abnormal exits, which are situations where the player might exit a jump point prematurely or not in the usual safe way. So, for example, a player may be falling out the back of their ship, the powering down of a jump point, or a jump drive failing, with the team saying dealing with all the possible cases in a sensible and consistent way is a tricky problem, but the result is a feature that has a genuine sense of risk and danger to its use, so it's important to get it right. Now, this sounds really interesting. It'll be great to find out what will happen if we fall out of a jump point, as I'm sure it'll happen for various reasons. Where will we be? What will happen to us? Will it almost wreck our ships, requiring us to repair or get rescued? Cannot wait to see how this unfolds. I completely forgot about the fact that we may not make it through safely. Now, the graphics and visual effects programming team completed a significant work on the shaders and materials, with one main focus being water lighting. The hair shader received attention due to updates to the hair clip volume interaction and efforts to prevent artists from having to rework assets through emulating the old visuals with the latest shading model. They also kicked off work on the opaque ice and crystal shader to solve quality and rendering issues with previous attempts using glass PBR. This shader will be cheap to use extensively, so for example in scattered planetary rocks and the Banu Merchantman's floor and walls. Very nice. Salvaging wise, an investigation was made into the networking of damage map data, as well as implementing placeholder interfaces to unblock the game coders. The main damage map features are being worked on in Q1. Hopefully ready for Q2, so 3.18. So great hearing that more work from other teams begun on Salvage. It is going to be touch and go with Salvage, but unlike previous times that Salvage has been on the roadmap, work hadn't begun. So now it has. Oh, those fingers are firmly crossed. Now onto the lighting team. They supported ship teams looking at various older ships and optimizing their lighting setups, alongside another layer of polish. This was mostly successful, though existing tech issues and bugs with some ships need to be ironed out before further progress can be made. And to wrap up 2021, the team moved back to working on Pyro's space stations, this time exploring more look dev and visual benchmarks. With the narrative team, they met with the feature teams to start work on additional mission content, determining what kind of lines would be needed, and discussed content for future dynamic events. Narrative also worked alongside character art on the upcoming Frontier style clothing, which will be most common on the fringes of society, such as less hospitable planets and areas without much commerce. It was also decided that while it will be influenced by Earth and Terra fashion, it will have its own unique overall aesthetic. Finally, the narrative team provided names and descriptions for various items and components, and completed documentation on fictional elements of the overall universe. Now, for the props team, they continued to work on Pyro's stations, which included refining the new trash asset. I think we heard about this during Star Citizen Live and CitizenCon, creating a new modular set for the improvised marketplace counters, heating and lighting props, and other dressing elements such as generators and fuse boxes. They also closed out support on an additional underground facility mission prop for the mission feature team, and polished several hospital props alongside the team in Montreal. Not sure what this mission prop for bunkers will be, we will have to find out. Finally, the initial white box work was done for the upcoming lockable, lootable crates, and cargo for the ongoing cargo refactor, so many more cargo box types to release for that update, I suspect. Now, for the systemic services and tools team, last year they wrapped up their work on the economy, tools, and AI simulation optimizations and tools polish. New functionality will be added to these tools in Q1, which will be detailed in January's report, which is only a couple of weeks away now. Work began on implementing the new selling gameplay system. This required an under-the-hood rework of the existing shop system, which will act as the foundation for the initial implementation. The whole team also helped to stabilize services and ensure one of the most stable patch releases yet, which was achieved by addressing various edge cases found with the new Super P cache and other back-end services and systems. Now, for tech animation, these guys set a mandate to finish upgrading all the head assets to the new pipeline in prep for the full DNA system refactor, which will hopefully conclude in early 2022, with the team saying to get us there, we need to recreate every single head asset in the game and check it's still working as intended. All hands are on deck for this one, with the whole team pushing to reach the finish line. This will be a great milestone. We are in desperate need of a head refresh, and I'm really looking forward to being able to consistently play as the same bloody person in the verse every time, rather than it defaulting to some random looking dude. Finally, the team also began cleaning up the animation databases, which involved triaging several hundred old animation asset references from the databases. Now, the UI team continued to update features for persistent streaming and supported the visual implementation of the refueling HUD. Progress was made on core tech and feature sets for the new star map, adding display controls to modify relative distance, orientation and scale, and the ability to frame selected objects appropriately. No idea when this updated star map is coming in. Hopefully it'll be 3.17, 3.18, an early patch, because that'll be just one of the biggest quality of life improvements that we could get. Alongside all the new added functionality, it'll be a blessing, and hopefully we're not waiting too long. They also continue to work on Cortex for hacking, adding the ability to select and edit text in the UI. The new building blocks editor entered pre-production towards the end of the year, which will make working on UIs more efficient and developer friendly, with more building blocks features also added. And on the art side, the team created a variety of new concepts for the Mobiglass, AR markers, the star map, Aegis' HUD modes, and Origin's HUD, and also updated icons for the lore system were concepted. So firstly, it sounds like they're not just working on the new Aegis HUD, but new modes for the Aegis HUD, plus work has begun for the Origin HUD. We know Drake, Origin, and I think RSI, we've seen Drake and Aegis' HUDs, or concepts for them. We have heard they started work on RSI's a little while ago, and now Origins. Very excited to see these come along. They will just make the whole range of ships feel more like they belong to the manufacturer, and hopefully improve quality of life as well at the same time. Now finally, we have the visual effects team. They made further tweaks to the planetary storm effects to help them pick up the lighting more naturally, and also research and development for Salvage commenced. Whew, excellent stuff. So quite a hefty double monthly report. I heard that January's monthly report will be coming around the 2nd of January, so we will have that to look forward to very soon. Plenty of progress is being made, and I am eager to see much of it evolve in the PU over this year. But with that said, if you enjoy and appreciate my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping my channel to grow. Also, if you want to hang out and talk all about Star Citizen, watch me play the current build, you are all more than welcome to join me over at twitch.tv/supermacbrother. Links are in the description below. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind, it does do my channel a big favour. Also tick that notification bell if you would like to be notified as and when my videos go live. Again, huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. You guys are awesome. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.